You can't get on a train. You can't get on a plane. You can't travel. You can't buy food. You can't do anything if they don't like it. And people do not see that coming here. They just don't see it. And I've already lived it.
As you stated, you would rather revoke your citizenship.
Correct. I will never do an ride count.
Okay.
Because I worked in China for 15 years, and I know exactly where this is heading. Okay. So I will never let you track me on my phone.
I urge all Canadians to stand up for their rights before it's too late and they're gone. If everybody stood up at once, it would be over with tomorrow. It's the fact that people are rolling over and it's inconvenient for them, or it's just, I just don't have the time. It's all of those reasons why this is continuing on. So please stand up for your rights and for your children's rights, because they're not going to have the same freedoms that you have today if you don't do something about it now.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News. And I've covered a lot of protests and done a lot of interviews with Canadians who are concerned about their rapidly eroding freedoms in Canada when it comes to COVID-19 restrictions and mandates. I've also spoken with counter-protesters or read the comments from people who disagree with these individuals and often say, "What freedoms have you even lost?" Of course, statements like that are only amplified when the sun is out and the humans are no longer forced to cover their air pathways anymore, or technically, those of the lower medical class, known as the unvaccinated, can in fact get on a plane. That is, if they can afford the cost of that trip, and then to also come home and to be banished to their home and quarantine for 2 weeks, often without making any financial income while doing so, even though they are completely healthy and at no risk to anyone else. No, the mandates and restrictions are not dropped in Canada, and neither has medical tyranny. And in fact, the two Canadians I'm about to interview today, Robert and Jaime Leibe, are perfect examples of that, because they were fined $25,000 for simply coming from their part-time home in Bellingham and trying to cross the border back into their own country to their other home in Penticton, BC. The Leibes are two of our charity partners at the Democracy Fund's newest clients. That means they are defending the Leibes at no cost to them, thanks to the amazing people like yourself who continue to donate and support Canadians like the Leibes who have taken a stand for freedoms in Canada by donating what you can at our special website called fightvaccinepassports.com. This is a perfect example of how medical freedoms are certainly not restored in Canada, unless you're someone like Prime Minister Trudeau, who admires communist China and how that country is run, of course.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as.
Which reminds me of why you're going to want to watch this report in full. You see, Robert Leibe also lived in China, in particular when they rolled out the whole digital ID that seemed like a fantastic idea and quickly transformed into a social credit system that we ought not to normalize here in Canada. If we do, I'm afraid to see what my score will be. But before I introduce you to the Leibes in just a moment here, I want to give a special thanks to everybody who is watching this and who has come together behind people who have taken a stand for freedom like the Leibes and donated what they can at our special website called fightvaccinepassports.com. Every dollar you guys have donated there has gone to help people like the Leibes fight cases like this at no charge. The Democracy Fund sets them up with top-notch lawyers who do the fighting for them. And you guys are the ones who continue to make that possible. So please help us cover the costs of the Leibes fight to not have to pay this $25,000 fine and also other vaccine-related cases, which you can learn about at the website as well at fightvaccinepassports.com. Now, just a little background. You guys, you live in Bellingham, you're Canadians, and you also have property in Penticton. And you were just sharing with me that, that was sort of a bit of a dream to be able to retire there, and it kicked in just before COVID hit. So just tell us briefly what your plans were for this Penticton home, and how that and everything else was affected by COVID-19 in 2020.
Well, my family had been vacationing in Penticton since the 60s. When our kids were younger, around 2002, we ended up buying a place in OK Falls. I changed my whole job aspect and became self-employed in 2004 just so I could spend the summers up here. And our plan eventually was that we would retire into Penticton, come back to Canada. So in 2017, 2018, we built a new house in Penticton. Our plans were to retire here. It finished in the fall of 2019. We went away actually traveling into China and Vietnam throughout the beginning of COVID. And when we came back, that's when all of the craziness started. And it was kind of led off with, what was going on in Canada. But we continued to live our lives as normal. And we started, we were coming up here and visiting the home and, over the winter and that. And then this last year with all of the lockdowns and, just how crazy it's gotten, we actually had our, somebody called on our license plates because we had Washington license plates, and we had the RCMP visit us at a local marina that we were having a couple drinks at and dinner, and we had a visit from them because people were turning us in.
Wow.
2020, yeah. And so with how crazy it got, we actually decided that this wasn't going to be a retirement home. We won't be coming back to Canada permanently. We actually just bought a place down in Phoenix, and we're going to end up down there.
When you mentioned the license plate, I can't help but thinking of Premier John Horgan when someone was getting bad treatment for having a license plate from a different province. And he basically said, well, don't travel, instead of, hey, don't treat these people poorly. So I guess I have to ask this, did you guys see a real difference between how COVID was handled in Bellingham versus here? Is that why you made the decision to stay over there, or you just couldn't travel?
Actually, Washington was very similar to Canada. They doubled down. And I ended up, I'm self-employed, and I actually had, at the time when COVID started, I had 15 employees. And I went up against the government. I was not going to mask my employees. I was not going to shut down. I was going to keep them, a lot of people that are working, they are working check to check.
Yeah.
They can't just shut down and say, well, go to the government and get a handout. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I fought them, and we stayed open through the whole thing. We had no masks. There was no forced vaccinations. If you want to vaccinate, I don't care. I'm not going to ask you. But they got crazy down there as well. So we started traveling to Florida. We started traveling to Phoenix. We went to Mexico. We went anywhere.
The lands of the free.
Exactly. And what was so funny, because we have friends in Florida, it was so funny how different it was there. It was absolute mayhem. Like they brought in the vaccination passport stuff. Like they wanted not the passport the way Canada did, but they wanted you to show your vaccination card if you went to a restaurant in Seattle, Bellingham. It broke out there as well. But you go to Florida and we're sitting on the beach having a drink with people all around us, and nobody's wearing masks, and it's like it didn't even exist.
Now, flash forward 2 years later, and here we are. You guys are trying to live. The mandates have dropped, but not when it comes to, traveling across the border into the U.S. if you're unvaccinated, or trying to get into Canada if you're unvaccinated. And so you guys, the reason why I've reached out to you is because you're one of the newest plaintiffs that our charity partners at the Democracy Fund are helping fight a crazy fine. Between the two of you, you guys have received $25,000 worth of fines for simply trying to come home to your other residents. Tell us a little bit about that. And I know this was the second time you tried, so why don't we start with the first time you did it?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Rebel News, because I've been watching you through this whole thing. And especially at the beginning when Chris Sky showed up in Toronto and just walked through Pearson International and just said, nope, not doing this. You don't have to do this. And that started me questioning, like, do I really have to do this?
Everybody knows All they have to do is exercise their freedom and exercise their rights. And you're not going to intimidate that out of people. You're definitely not going to intimidate it out of me. I'll tell you that.
And so I started looking at our rights and I go, I don't actually think we have to do any of this. And so that's what started the whole thing. And then I started digging deeper and just reading other people's experiences. People are starting to post on Rumble, things that they've done. And I thought, holy cow, I don't need to do this. So I wrote up an entire script stating our rights as Canadian citizens to return to our home country and our right to travel within that country and our right to leave that country. And so I wrote up an entire script and we came through on June 9th. And literally we pulled up to the border. The border guard was awesome, super nice guy. When I told him that, he did the normal customs things and made sure that we weren't importing anything illegal. And then he switched. And when he switched, it was literally like he became another person. It's like, okay, well, do you have a ArriveCAN done? No, we don't believe in that. And all of a sudden everything stops. Out comes the yellow pad. He starts writing on the yellow pad. I go, oh, we're going in. Here we go. So he writes on the yellow pad. And then he said, well, I guess you're not going to give us your vaccination status either, are you? And I go, oh, you've been through this before. Yeah, we're not doing that either. Okay, well, I need you to go to talk to public health. And I go, do I really have to? And he said, well, it's required. And I go,
but do I have to?
And he said, well, you need to go in and talk to him. I said, okay, fine. So I go in and we literally just stated that we're Canadians. They asked us the typical questions at public health, but we said, no, we're not answering any of those questions that are health related. Those are our private questions. You can screen us, check our temperature, whatever, and see if we've got COVID or not, but we are not answering personal questions. You are not going to find out whether we're vaccinated. You're not finding any of that information out. And we continually said, are we being detained? Are we free to go? And every time we asked that question, he said, you are not being detained. You're free to go. And I said, okay, well, we're leaving. Well, no, I need to ask more questions. And I go, we're not answering. We're not answering. Are we free to go?
Yeah.
And he said, yes, you are. And out we went. And we were in there maybe 10 minutes. It was very quick and really no issues. And so, yeah, that's how we got through the first time. That was the Sumas into Huntington or Abbotsford border.
So, and then the next time you try, which is so happens to be Father's Day, you come across the exact same border guard. Okay, so totally different treatment here this time around. What do you think the reason was for that? So
he was very nice again. He recognized me. We had a little bit of a laugh that I said, hey, we have to make 2 trips because we have to bring the boat up. And then we were bringing the jet ski up that time. And
I just want to make sure I got the right person.
Yeah, it's no problem. It'll never happen again.
Because you were towing a boat through last time.
Yeah, we have to make a couple trips.
Yeah.
He was very nice. However, he did the yellow form like he did, but he held up passports. And normally, and I mean, again, I'm Canadian living in the US for 30 years. Plus, as a child, we always went back and forth. My mom would go shopping in Bellingham, whatever. Always you recognize if they hold your passports, you're going for secondary inspection. That's what they do. They hold your passports for secondary inspection. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I could kind of see what he wrote. And it was the same thing. It was no public health and it was no ArriveCAN. Yeah, they always want that ArriveCAN. So I thought, well, this is interesting. And knowing what I know now, I should have stood my ground and said, if we're not going for secondary inspection, I would like to have my passport back. I have no choice, right? I have to go inside. So we go inside. This time I grabbed my cell phone and I had a pocket right here. And I put my cell phone in there. I thought, I'm recording this because this is not good. So in we go. And he hands it to the public health person. And I recognize him. It's the same guy we had last time. It's the same guy.
They treated me better this time than the last time.
Who?
Both of you.
What? We just said, are we free to go? Last time we said, are we free to go? Are we being detained?
And as he's walking by, we're both saying to him constantly, are we being detained? Are we free to go?
Are we being detained?
One of them being
Are we being
pre-arrival
detained?
test.
Are we free to go?
I'm asking you questions.
Are we detained?
I will
Are
be
we free to
issuing you
go?
tickets.
That's fine.
Fine.
Going upstairs and he's coming down. You could see him going into offices, talking to people. And I go, oh, we're going to get a different treatment this time. So I'm convinced that they flagged us.
It's very possible. Yeah, I mean, they have the ability to do so. And either way, it's, what is the rules? Why is it one treatment this way? It comes across as though they're not even sure themselves, which is something we've seen this whole time with the mandates and restrictions around COVID. You have people all of a sudden granted or think they're granted some sort of power that they've never had. They don't even know what they're doing with it. So it's quite crazy. I know you guys are probably hearing similar things, but a lot of my emails I hear, there's no consistency with unvaccinated people going and coming across the border. Sometimes they don't even get asked questions. And, sometimes they're like, just have a good birthday or what have you. And then sometimes, like yourself, you guys get slapped with hefty fines.
Look at all of these tickets. Gotta love Canada.
There's a lot of people, thankfully, in Canada who look at situations like this and come and say, you know what, I want to help these people and cover their legal fees so that they don't be inconvenienced in the fight. What does that feel like to know that people are going to come behind you 2 years into this after doing it so many times for other people?
Oh, I know. I'm so appreciative that there's a group standing up in Canada. I'm so appreciative for Rebel News, just what you are doing to show everybody just what's going on, because this is still going on. People think that because they dropped the mask mandates and you don't have to show your passport to get into restaurants, they think it's over. Mm-hmm. And it's not over. Mm-hmm. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's just beginning. I've worked in China for 17 years. I watched it unroll 6, well, what are we into now? 6 years ago, I watched them bring out these QR code passports. And I always wanted one because so many times I'd be in a restaurant, I couldn't pay for things. They don't take credit cards, they wouldn't take cash. I'd be at a machine at an amusement place, and I wanted a bottle of water. I couldn't. I had to have that QR code. And luckily I had an assistant that I hired over there, and she would say, "Oh, I'm saving your butt this time." And she would hold up her QR code, and it would take the money out of her bank account, and it would spit out a bottle of water. And I thought, oh, this is so convenient. This is a wonderful thing. It would be amazing if we had that in North America. Well, now you see what they do over there. If they don't like you politically, if they don't want you coming into your hometown to take money out of the bank, because there's a run on banks going on over there right now. If they don't want you to do anything, the government just shuts off your QR code. You now can't pay for what they call it's Didi, but it's Uber over there. You can't get on a train. You can't get on a plane. You can't travel. You can't buy food. You can't do anything if they don't like it. And people do not see that coming here. They just don't see it. And I've already lived it.
As you stated, you would rather revoke your citizenship.
Correct. I will never do an ride count.
Okay.
Because I worked in China for 15 years, and I know exactly where this is heading. Okay. So I will never let you track me on my phone.
That must have been very scary to see unfold. And when you're saying you can't get on a train and plane, I automatically hear our dear Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying the same thing, who we know has an appreciation for China. And boy, is he proving that. Words of wisdom from you guys. Again, thanks to Rebel News, but special thanks to everybody who comes behind Rebel News. We're crowdfunded ourselves, so there is no Rebel News without the people. The same type of people who support us are the same type of people who are supporting you guys on this legal fight by donating at fightvaccinepassports.com. Not a penny goes to Rebel News or to the Leaps. It goes to the legal fees through the Democracy Fund charity. So thank you guys so much. Any words of advice or encouragement for Canadians from you two as a sort of goodbye?
Yes, I urge all Canadians to stand up for their rights before it's too late and they're gone. If everybody stood up at once, it would be over with tomorrow. It's the fact that people are rolling over and it's inconvenient for them, or it's just, I just don't have the time. It's all of those reasons why this is continuing on. So please stand up for your rights and for your children's rights, because they're not going to have the same freedoms that you have today if you don't do something about it now.
Amen. Thanks for being on Rebel News today, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you appreciate that there are organizations out there like the Democracy Fund and Rebel News that are coming together to help people like the Leibes take a fight against medical tyranny, then join the fight with us. Donate what you can at fightvaccinepassports.com today.